Space travel. Is it a myth or is it something that we can attain? Can we take ourselves to the farthest reaches of the cosmos? Or are we stuck here on this planet forever? Join us tonight as we talk about some very interesting space travel and the future of our leaving this planet. It's time to get uncanny. And we are back for another fun-filled episode of This Uncanny Earth, brought to you by us. That's it. And our great, amazing affiliates that keep us going. Once again, I am your host, Robert Solomon, the man, the myth, the legend himself. Of course, with me, I have my co-host Spider and Steven, looking like a fresh-faced 22-year-old. Good morning, gentlemen. Good evening, gentlemen, I should say. Not good morning. Maybe it's morning somewhere. It's morning somewhere. How are we doing this week?
Fine.
We're good. We're good. It wasn't as cold today as it has been. We haven't gotten any more snow after that one day, so
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. But things are good. Things are moving forward, moving well.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Any business you gentlemen would like to discuss before we get into our topic tonight?
I don't think I have anything upcoming just yet. We have some secret projects in the works that we actually just discussed backstage, and you're going to be amazed. It's going to be awesome. I expect big things from it. Other than that, I don't have anything else under my hat.
I hope that would be if you were wearing a hat,
I know that's the secret.
but you're not wearing a hat. Or maybe you are. Maybe you're wearing one of those like caps that's just hair.
Invisible
like in the
hat.
movies. Maybe you're a man of many hats. I don't know. That's the thing, I guess. Anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, probably my favorite topic, and that's space travel. I'm a big fan of space. Obviously, as many of you know, I've been a big fan of space since I was a wee lad growing up here in rural Ohio and always wanted to go to space. I always wanted to be an astronaut, actually. I applied for the program a few years back when they were letting just anybody get in to be an astronaut. And I was like, I'm going to throw my hat in that ring. I mean, why not? You know, you never know until you shoot for it. So I said, I'm just going to shoot for it. Obviously, I wasn't called because I'm still sitting here doing this. Because if I'd have been called, I'd have been like, just leave me here on wherever we're going. Leave me on the moon so I can jump really high and, dunk basketballs or something. Thoughts, gentlemen, if you could go into space today, pack your stuff, it's time to go, would you go?
Nope.
That's a one no. Why not?
I'm afraid of heights. I couldn't do it.
Okay.
Valid.
Fair enough. Does that mean you're not going to?
With everything going on right now, definitely not a good idea.
You only live once. I'm not going to stop living just because the world's in a weird situation. So I'll definitely fly. Yeah. Spider, how about you? You going to space? Space is the place.
If it was still just me, then sure.
Mhm.
I'd love to see it. I'd love to explore. I'd love to check out everything that's out there. Right now, I got the family, and if we're talking realistic, like if it's me right now with the family and everything, I can't leave them behind because I'm not going to drag them into space without a plan. But if it was just me, yeah, why not?
Okay.
What's the worst that can happen is that you come to the end, you find something out there that's worse than what you found here. Big deal, I mean, things
Sucked
gonna happen
into a
here, things
black
gonna happen
hole.
there. That could happen, but I'll find out what it was like before I go. I can't tell
Yeah.
you about it, but I'll know what it's like.
Okay.
So
Okay. So we have 2 opposed and 1 for. So that's fine. I would go. I would go, and I would be like, I'll see y'all later. I'm out of here. I don't think they have child support in space. So I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So yes, I would go just because I've always wanted to go, and I think it'd be a cathartic experience for me. For me, now obviously everybody's different. Steven, of course, is afraid of heights, so as soon as the rocket would get too high up, they'd be like, "Let me." He'd be like, "Let me out." They'd
Yeah.
throw him out, and he would parachute back down to the earth, very much intact. I get it though. I get it because it's pretty high. Being in a jet airplane, so many thousand feet above, in the air is pretty. It's different, but yeah, I don't think it would be the same though because if you think about it, I mean, heights are. I'm not a big fan of heights myself, but being on a plane and being on a building really high up are two different things. In a plane, you're sort of in a tin can and you're just kind of cruising around. In a building, the building could collapse, but on that same basic principle, the plane could crash. So you win some, you lose some, but at least it'll be quick. If the rocket explodes, at least it'll be quick. You won't have to worry about it. It'll be like the Challenger back in the 80s that my first or second grade teacher, that was her cousin. Like the that was she was related to her. So yeah. Judith Resnick, I think, was her name. So yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, let's get into what I like to call first the stellar engine aspect of this. Now, stellar engines are megastructures that use stars radiation to create usable energy. And there are a few different types of stellar engines. Now, the stellar engine is essential for us to even travel beyond what we already have now. Now, we can go to the moon now. We can go to, we can put satellites into space. We can send stuff out into the deep reaches of space. But we, as human beings, can't venture out that far yet. But we'd have to have a plan. We'd have to have a method. We'd have to have a way to extend our reach beyond. And as it stands right now, we can't really extend our reach because we don't have the technology to do so. The average human being's lifespan isn't long enough to be out there in space. We'd have to find a way to kind of
Cryogenics?
cocoon ourselves, yes, as it were, and to be able to get us out there. But first of all, what we need is we would need the energy to be able to travel in space. And the stellar engines are one of those ways, and there are 5 classes, A through E. Class A stellar engines utilize the energy flux of a star's radiation to produce a thrust force. Class B uses the energy flux or radiation emitted by a star to generate mechanical power. C are stellar engines that combine both A and B, and it uses the propulsion of Class A and the energy generation of Class B. Now, Class D stellar engines uses a star's mass to propel the star, and E stellar engines employ a weapon to move or destroy a star. Now, I can only imagine trying to destroy our sun with something that we just build, and we'd be like, "Hey, the sun's in the way. We should remove it. Let's blow it up." Which would entail doing an artificial supernova um, explosion, which, if we were not ready to go, would wipe out our entire solar system as we know it and would have a crazy ripple effect. Now, gentlemen, let's get into our discussion here. Stellar engines. Do you think these things are possible? Now, supposedly, a few years back or a year back, they had some energy outbursts that were being sent across the galaxies. And some think that it was stellar engines, that these energy signals were being bounced from stellar engine to stellar engine, and then we were able to pick that link up. So I ask both of you, what do you think about stellar engines? Do you think this is a legit thing we could pull off, or do you think it's just a science fiction narrative?
Well, a couple of those things are interesting because if you look at them from a theoretical standpoint, the technology is not particularly magical. It's not particularly unattainable. Um, in science fiction, a common way to generate thrust is by the collection of helium-3, which is basically what your Class B stellar engine is going to do. It's taking energy from planets or stars, which is taking their gases or their emissions and using that to power your movement. In other forms, you've got basically what's called a mass effect field, which is pushing yourself off from the mass of one thing to hit the mass of another. And that's what they use in of course, the Mass Effect video games. They use dark matter and dark space to accomplish it, but they're taking this big apparatus with a lot of mass, and you're pushing against it. Well, it's pushing on you, and you're using the force of that to propel you from one place to another place. Star Wars has similar restrictions on their light speed, their hyperspace, where you can't use it in certain proximities of a large mass like a planet, or else you potentially blow yourself up, which unfortunately they have ignored in many of the more modern movies. But nerd rage aside, a lot of these things are, again, theoretically attainable, and I think they're smart ways to do things, because the science of a slingshot is very much like the science of pushing yourself off from the mass of something else. You're pulling back, it's building up the energy, and then boom. And that's a small scale, but we do the similar things with race vehicles when they're doing some of the fastest drag races that you could possibly do with those cars that look like basically a large pen-shaped tube. They launch them, and they launch off the carrier ships. We launch fighter jets the same way, like a big slingshot. You can apply that to asteroids or planets or anything with a large enough mass. So it's not something that's unheard of. Are we close enough to actually utilize that yet? I think we're probably closer to collecting gases and minerals than we are to the other thing. But we're still a ways off. We've gotten to hydrogen cars, we've gotten to certain things like that, but it's a bit of a jump to go from a vehicle that size going down the street to a large spacecraft pushing through the atmosphere of a planet into deep space. How close are we to actually getting there? It's up in the air. I don't think it's going to be soon, not in my lifetime, but the technology is possible, in my opinion.
Okay. Steven, thoughts?
I think the only difference between science and science fiction is time. I'm a big believer in the conspiracy theory that government technology is 20 years advanced to civilian technology. So I'm not saying I believe it could happen within the next 20 years. I'm kind of like Spider. The chances of it happening in our lifetime are most likely very low. But he did mention dark energy, and that actually makes me think about this other thing I call hyperbits. It's this conceptual thing that I've created because I believe that there is a lattice within our reality that interacts with our thought processes. Because if you've heard of the law of attraction, it sounds like some hippy dippy stuff. But it is actually supported by science. And I actually have a theory as to why the law of attraction exists. And I believe that it exists because there are these things that I have dubbed hyperbits that exist within the lattice of reality around us at any given time, kind of like oxygen. We can't see it, but it's there. And I think that when our minds have certain thoughts, it interacts with these hyperbits. And they even, during Project Stargate, they even did testing with RNG devices, and they found a correlation between people's thoughts and the numbers, like a very consistent correlation. So I think with all that in mind, if at some point in the future we learn more about these hyperbits and dark energy, I believe we could use the hyperbits as a form of dark energy in order to propel ourselves forward like the pushing off from it, because my belief is that these hyperbits are a form of dark energy that exist all around us. So if we could figure out how to interact with them, perhaps we could push off of the hyperbits or dark energy and propel ourselves forward that way.
Excellent points of both of you. I do want to say I kind of disagree with you both on in our lifetime. I do think we are one scientific breakthrough away from achieving travel in space, and I don't think it's beyond our means at this point. I think we're closer to putting ourselves out there, more so than we were maybe 10 years ago. I think we'd be very old, mind you. I think we would be maybe 80s, 70s, or 80s before we would see something like that. I believe we would see at least the conceptualization of said abilities, to put ourselves out in space. And we'll get into a little bit of dark matter later. I think all it's going to take is a breakthrough of a new type of energy, whether that be us, figuring out a new way to work with, nuclear energy, or a way to harness dark matter, though I think the latter is a little bit more complicated because we don't even know if dark matter exists. Nobody's ever seen it.
Yeah.
It's a very much a hypothetical scenario, but supposedly it exists. But I think what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to really start going into different forays of that. And I think the world in its state that it's in, a lot of people aren't really thinking of going to space. Nobody's like, man,
right
let me get to space. Even though they should be, putting all of our differences aside, I think if China and Russia and us and India and some of the more superpowered countries could all get together and have all of our top scientists sit down and go over facts and figures, because I can guarantee you, if one of our other nations figured this out, like say it wasn't an ally of the United States, please believe they're going to guard that secret with their lives. They're not going to let us know. They're not going to let anybody else know, so that they could be the first, because there comes a lot of power with being the first country to actually go out into space, not to go to the moon, not to just hang around the orbit of the Earth in the space station, or just flying around for 30 days. No, I think that the first country that can push itself, out into the cosmos, it's a lot of power right there. And I think a lot of people are vying for that power. And I think because if we did it, we'd be all about it. We'd be having, American flags draped all over it, pictures of barbecue and American things, and they'd be blasting some Leonard Skinner as the rocket took off into space. However, I do think that we probably know how to do it, because, like you said, the government has technology that's, 20 years ahead of what we have right now. I've always believed this. I think that there's a very good groundwork for that we can prove by looking at what the government has hid from us before. And if we go off things like the sound in Cuba, that people were having problems, they were hearing them and they were getting sick, stuff like that exists. So I think it's safe to say that if we're not there yet, we are on the cusp of discovering something new, but we'll never know about it because it'll be very much a hush hush endeavor. And people say, well, we would know if they were going in the rocket. We would hear the rocket. Yes, but all they would have to tell you is, hey, we're going to space again. Not tell you that we're going to go out into actual space, but just we're going to fly around the Earth and do some studies and maybe, see what the moon looks like. So I think we're there in terms of theories and things like that. But I don't know if we have a stellar engine built underneath the White House. We could, don't know, would love to know, but don't know if that's possible. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get into some stellar engines, and we'll discuss each one, because I find each of these very fascinating. So the first one I want to discuss is the Shakadov thruster, and that is a Class A stellar engine that accelerates a star by selectively reflecting or absorbing light on one side of the star's surface. Now, theoretically, it could be used to move our own sun out of the way of danger or move a rogue star away from damaging our solar system. This here is a very fascinating concept. Um, and it's not something that would be instantaneous. It's something that would take a very long time, longer than we would be alive. You know, our children, it would still be moving the sun when our children were little, and when their children were little, the sun. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of years to move a giant star like that. To move a rogue star out of the way, maybe even takes longer. Who knows? This is all mathematically hypothetical that we know of at face value at present because we only have so much information. Nobody's over here telling us top secret government stories. But if you want to, hit that email, thisuncanny@gmail.com, and let us know if you know some government secrets about space travel.
And
we
we
would
can
love
make
to.
Proton as well.
We would love to do that. What'd you say?
We should also make a Proton as well if we're serious about accepting whistleblowers because it's much more secure and you can encrypt the emails.
I think that if the government wants it to get out, they'll let it get out. They'll say, we don't want that to get out. We didn't want that to get out. But I think that there's a certain level of
They were not happy with Snowden.
enjoyment that the government gets out of releasing certain information, because the best thing they could do is just call the person a crackpot. You know, because if you don't have any verifiable evidence, then you're a crackpot. I'm not saying that you're a crackpot per se. I am saying is it's easier to make somebody look crazy in this day and age than it is to suicide them.
All right. I completely agree. And that's why I still believe the Majestic 12 files were real.
And if they weren't real, there was something very similar, and they just put the Majestic 12 out there to sort of blind people to what it really was. Because I definitely think that we've had contact with extraterrestrial beings, whether they were helpful or they were harmful, whether they were grays, which I don't necessarily believe that the aliens are grays. I think that's just something people made up or the government made up so that they could throw people for a loop. But I think that aliens just look like us. I think they're bipedal humanoids on a level that maybe they were here, maybe they were, on Mars and they had to terraform the place. So there's a lot of things like that. No, go ahead.
Last thing, not to derail too much, but I find this very interesting. I've actually heard a theory that aliens might actually be humans from the future, and I like that one.
I've heard this.
I really like that one.
I've heard this, and it says that they're in a barren hellscape, and the reason they look like gray aliens is because of the way the planet works now, and they have to live underground, and they can't see, and
they can time travel. It's wild, but it's wild. It's entertaining.
I will give you that it's entertaining, as much as I don't think that's possible. It is entertaining. It's an entertaining concept. Spider, what do you think about the Shakadov thruster? What would you do if you just went on the news and they were like, "Hey, we're going to be moving the sun today. Got to get it out of the way of everything else." I think there's risks inherent with that, but what are your thoughts?
As interesting as that is, it is also, as you mentioned, it's inherently incredibly risky because our planet is in what is known in astronomy circles as the Goldilocks zone. It's a perfect distance from our star to provide just the amount of light we need without burning us to a crisp, or without the planet having a one side that's warm and one side that's eternally frozen all the time as it orbits. And if you move the star by certain degrees, it is super simple to throw that out of balance, because you can't really assume necessarily that all of the mass of the solar system is going to move as one. It may, or it might not, or it may move in increments. The star may move first, which would leave us in a pretty rough spot for a little while until we move back. And the trick is, are we going to be prepared and able to survive something like that? If you had the time and you could convince people that, hey, you're going to have to, it's going to be ice age for a few years, like serious ice age, not just cold outside. It's going to be like farthest north, Canada, Alaska stuff in the middle of July. And when it gets to be wintertime, it's going to be double that. So you got to be prepared. We'll get the heaters to everybody. We'll figure out an infrastructure to keep everybody warm, et cetera, et cetera. Because if you don't, and then again, it's making sure that everything follows suit afterwards and everything settles back down. Because you're not just thinking about your own civilization, you're thinking about all the other life on the plant and animal life that we require, because everything's interconnected.
Yeah.
There's so many things that have gone extinct that we are just now realizing that we needed, that make things difficult. And so as much as I think it's an interesting and fascinating technology, I also think it's inherently dangerous. And I don't particularly trust that the right people will do it the right way, because I'm very cynical. I would love to just be like, well, somebody will figure it out. But I think somebody more likely would mess it up. And then we're stuck in cold zone. Or it could backfire and move closer, and we're the next Mercury. And then it's no amount of sunscreen. You're done. If you can't live underground, if it penetrates that deep, then that's it. Because that's a lot of radiation, not just heat. That's a lot of radiation. So fascinating as it is, I can't see it as being feasible to where we are without being able to move the entire star system, which is an entire other level of technology.
Which we can't do unless we can harness the power of our own star, which we cannot at present, which sets up a whole different domino effect. Like you said, what if we move it 1 degree, or we put it back 1 degree off? Next thing you know, our planet's either freezing or we're burning to death. And there's no way of setting that back right, because you're just going to keep moving and moving and moving. And after a while, we don't know what that's going to do to the other planets, let alone our planet. But we don't know what kind of orbit it's going to send those planets into. We don't know the tidal waves that might happen, or the tidal lock system, because the moon controls that. But if we're moving our star and we get it just a hair off, what happens with everything else is moving? And who said everything else is going to move? Everything else might not move. And let's go ahead and say, what if only like 2 or 3 planets move?
Yeah.
Then we're screwed. And what if it moves our moon, but it keeps our planet stationary? Well, there goes the tidal. Now we're run rampant with floods, and we're basically going to go through a terraforming stage that we don't want to go through. I think this is highly
overlapping orbits.
Yes.
From the large planets and the small planets and the asteroid fields, because there's 2 of them, and then you have the Oort cloud out there, and then you have, all the trans-Neptunian objects, and they're all in different orbits. And if these orbits are different, they might start crossing, and then we're looking at a collision course with something like Jupiter or Saturn, or who knows.
And, with the many moons of Jupiter too. That's a whole nother thing that we have to analyze. And obviously they would probably put some of the top scientists on making this work, but I just do not see this going the way it would go in like a science fiction film, or, a science, or not a science fiction, but like a science documentary about how it could be done. I think there's too many variables and too many problems. I don't think it's something that we can just be like, start moving it, because we have to keep the upkeep of that stellar engine going for as long as it takes to move the sun up, or move the sun, and move the sun back, or moving a rogue star that's sort of kind of traverse into our galaxy. And if the machine goes to pot and it gets all messed up, who do we have fix it? Do we have technicians out there? One of these stellar engines, it's close to, it's the landing point is on Mercury. We can't take the heat on Mercury. So, maybe that's where your AI aspect, your robot aspect comes in, because that'd be about the only thing that can handle that. But if, they make a mistake, or something is broken on ye old stellar engine, then you're looking at a whole different set of. So I just think there's too many things that could go wrong, and I think it weighs more on the wrong side than the right side. So this is something that I'm just like, it's concerning, but I just think it stays in the theoretical department of planetary endeavors. So, and I mean, you know, I've seen I think it's Kyrgyzit, the YouTube channel where they talk about moving the whole solar system, where you would move it to a place that would be a little bit safer. But then you're running the risk of running into another solar system. So there's too much. You move it up, maybe you hit something up here, you move it down, maybe you hit something down here. I don't think it's feasible at present where we stand as a society and civilizations for the Shakadov thruster to work. I just don't see it as a viable option. Stephen, what do you think about the Shakadov thruster? Are you on board with this thing, or do you think that we probably shouldn't be messing with stuff we don't really know anything about yet?
I'm with you guys. I don't think we should be messing with it because like you said, there's too many variables. We could shoot ourselves out into the galaxy and we could run into not a minefield, but like an asteroid field.
Oh, yeah.
We could bump into another planet. Who's to say that the force of the Shakadov thruster itself wouldn't rip our planet apart?
Yeah.
Like, there's just too many dangers.
Or that it wouldn't have enough pull to move us.
Yeah.
That we just sit situated and locked in a specific spot while the sun's moving.
And like you said, if we don't move everything with us, we're still messed up.
And let's take this one step further. Who's gonna be the country that builds it? And are they gonna hog that to themselves?
Yes,
and the thought of like, hey, you know what? If you want us to move the sun out of the way, you're going to have to pay us. You're going to have to give us all your nuclear armaments. You're going to have to do everything that you can to prove that you're an earthly citizen, or else we're not going to move the sun. And we could very well do this. Yeah. We could very well be those people that say, I don't really want to let the sun go today. We're going to keep it here. Now, if you pay me $10 trillion, we'll move it. So, and I think it's a good point. I think it's, I think it's, but that's the kind of thing we have to face as human. Greed is always perpetually going. Greed is something that will never fade from society. Greed is like the thing, the quintessential attribute that humanity has.
Billionaires. I
think if we get enough billionaires together to pool their money to make something like this, that's an interesting thing, because it's, the three of us, we don't have enough money to make these things.
Donating their money. That's funny.
I don't think we have. I don't have the financial means to build a Shakadov thruster, and I think it would be in the trillions. Because first of all, you have to have the technology to make the thing, right? And you have to have blueprints laid out how to design it. You have to have models that show how it works, how it doesn't work, the problems that could happen when it's in play, when it's not in play.
Hundreds of trillions.
There's too much at stake for us to throw it on a whim. Now the next one here is the Caplan thruster. Now I'm very interested in the Caplan thruster. Now this is another Class A stellar engine, and what it does is it uses certain regions of the outer surface of the star and creates beams of solar wind for collection by a multi-Bussard ramjet assembly, which produces plasma to stabilize its orbit and jets of oxygen-14 to push the star. The Bussard engine would use 10 to the 15th grams per second of solar material to produce a maximum acceleration of 10 to the negative 9 ms to the 2. This is a lot of math here. I didn't get fully in the math. I love math, but I didn't want to do that for the show because people would be like, another sleeper episode. But this would allow a yielding velocity of 200 kilometers after 5 million years and a distance of 10 parsecs over 1 million years. So we would not see this thing happen. our children's children wouldn't see, our children's children's still wouldn't see that happening. This is something we'd have to plan for way ahead of time. Another one that I just, because in a million years, a lot can change in a million years. We might destroy ourselves 100,000 years into this thing, moving our sun, and then what? And then that goes rogue, because you're going to have people that upkeep this thing, whether that be upkeeping it remotely, whether it's sending robots out into whatever closest planet, probably be Mercury, to keep this thing moving and going and working. Because if our civilization dies and we lose the ability to take care of this thing, it's just going to sit out there doing its job until it's done its job so much that it could be a problem. It could be a serious problem that us three right now, if it takes, 5 million years for this thing to happen, we're not going to see it. It would probably take it would take, I would say, quite a long time to build this thing, right? Let alone operate it. We have no idea how to operate something like this. Obviously we would if we're building it, but as it stands right now that I know of, we don't have that technology to build these things. I do think it's a fantastic, like I have the picture floating around somewhere of what it looks like, and it basically sucks in so they mine on Mercury to fuel the thing, and it's almost like a vacuum. It sucks in what they need, and then the output is the flame that sort of pushes the sun or moves the sun out. Spider, we'll go with you here. What do you think it would take? Like, what do you think it would take for us to be able to do something like that? How far advanced do you think we would have to be in order for us to build something like this?
Well, first off, I'm going to suggest that I think it would be, because this is something I think is possibly more of a viable technology, but on a smaller scale. I don't think necessarily that we would have to engineer it the size of 4 solar systems or for suns, but if you scaled it back a little bit to be used by large spacefaring vessels, I think it's a good possibility, because it uses a fuel that can be found readily, supposedly, in the universe. And some of the things mentioned in the technology are things that have already been applied to sci-fi concepts of ships. Star Trek uses the what is it, the Brassard, however you said it. They use that for something in their makeup that makes the ship go for some reason. I'm not as up on my Trek technology as I used to be, but I think that on a smaller scale, we could be a lot closer. And we are talking about, even though right now the biggest problem we're dealing with is motivation to get out into space and do things. But if we can get motivated, there's been plenty of talk, there's been plenty of tests of going to asteroids and other small bodies to collect materials, to collect elements like iron and whatnot and things of that nature, meteoric iron and whatever else they have. We have the technology now to do that in a limited space. We can do that around our planet on rogue planetoids and asteroids that come through. The trick is being able to fund long-term missions far enough out and to still be able to communicate with them in a quicker fashion than what we have now, so that we can bypass the time dilation effect. Because we've got a wealth of things out there. We have our own sun, which, if we were careful in how we harvested certain parts of it, we could collect things from it if you were able to figure out how to approach it safely enough from a certain corridor. We have 2 asteroid belts, like I said. You've got the Oort cloud. You've got, which is full of comets and space dust and ice and all kinds of things. You have a lot of resources out there. And a lot of it is things that I don't think would cause a huge detriment to the universe if we went out and took some of it. It's not a planet that some other species might be living on. It's not something that if you mess with, it's going to throw off the equilibrium of our solar system. It's asteroids and comets and different things that aren't directly affecting us on a regular basis. And again, the trick is, where are we in relation to being able to get that? I think we're closer to that than we are with some of the other technologies that we're talking about. I think we're, because again, we are developing space mining techniques right now. What we're lacking is the motivation. Not enough people want to go do it. NASA and some of the other space organizations have had funding cut. There's been a lot of projects that have had to be shelved over the last couple of years. We had a big rush in private spacecraft building, and then you don't hear as much about it now. Now you hear, oh yeah, SpaceX did another rocket launch. Oh yeah, they did another rocket launch. But you don't hear much from it. You don't hear about practical things. You just hear a lot of tests, I understand how long it takes to develop these things. But at one point you had 8 or 9 major aerospace companies all competing to get contracts for this kind of stuff. And now there's maybe 2 of them that are doing anything practical. Branson's company is just taking celebrities on sightseeing tours. Boeing, every once in a while you hear, oh yeah, we're working on something, and then you don't hear about it, and you have no concrete anything that they're doing. The only people really that we know of that are doing anything in as far as our country is SpaceX, and they've got too many fingers and too many things. Musk is busy with Tesla and busy with government stuff and busy with scandal and busy with this, and I don't know. I would like to think that we're closer to developing this particular kind of space engine on a smaller scale than we are. And I think we're just lacking in the motivation to do it. I think we're within reach of this if we just took a little bit closer steps to it and did a little bit more. You're muted.
Thank you. I have to agree with you because, I've tried to have conversations with people about, the Shackett thruster or the Caplan thruster, or just, traveling to space in general. Then nobody seems to want to talk about it. Nobody's amped up about it. They're too busy worried about what politicians said or what country needs to be freed, or what country is fighting another country.
Or
Nobody
what celebrity
seems
is
to
the
be,
prettiest? You forgot
or
that
what
one.
celebrity is the prettiest. You are the prettiest, obviously. You're the prettiest celebrity, Stephen. But nobody cares. I'm not saying nobody, because I care, you care,
Yeah.
Stevie cares, but nobody is putting it out into the forefront of conversation. It's just something that, even my own family's like, that doesn't help us. And it does. And I see why people feel like that. It's not a solution to the world's problems, even though it is.
It kind of is.
But it isn't in terms of right now. It's not going to fix anything right now, when a lot of people are looking for a right now fix for a lot of the problems. But, expanding our reach beyond what we have here and moving out into the solar system is a great way to fix overpopulation problems. It's a great way to get people that don't want to be here out of here. You don't want to be on Earth. Okay, cool. Here's the shuttle. It's a one-way trip. You go, you don't come back. But until that's offered, nobody cares. For the most part, space is something that we look at and say, that'd be cool to do, but it's not something that I want to do. I don't want to do that. I want to figure out how to fix the world's problems right now, even though traveling to space is a viable option for fixing the world's problems. But nobody cares, in terms of the of the grand population. They're too busy doing protests, or they're too busy fighting the government in one form or another. One side hates the other side hates the other side. And if they would put all these differences aside, and all these things, all the governments of the world will put all their stuff aside and come together and really try to figure this thing out, like Spider said, I feel like we're on the cusp of it, but not enough people care. Not enough people are interested in it. I kind of equate that to us being finite mortal beings. You know, we all three of us here could die tomorrow, right? And it wouldn't matter if we traveled to space at that point. It wouldn't matter. And it's something that has to be done for the greater good. But if nobody's interested in it, then you can't have a jump off point for it to be like, hey, you know what? I'm interested. Let's jump off, right? Steven, why do you think people aren't as excited about space as they used to be? Like in the 50s and 60s when people were like, man, we need to go to space. Space is the place.
Because they're, like you said, they're too distracted by nonsensical things like this political party, that political party, this celebrity, that gossip, and they're just too involved in their own little lives, and they can't see past right now in this exact second to the future.
What do you think, too, that us not having advanced enough, right? When space was the rage and we were going to the moon and we were out in space, people were gung-ho about it. They're like, yeah, because they thought we were going to see, you know, everybody thought, oh, it's about to be science fiction up in here. We're about to have, you know, alien women. You know, we're about to have, the whole world is about to change and we're going to have a great space exploration. We're going to find all these cool things. We're going to find all these mysteries of space. And when that didn't happen, I think there was a big collective letdown. And I think that collective letdown has persevered to this day. You know, like I said, nobody's excited about talking about space. I try to talk to people at work. I try to talk to people, you know, in passing, and nobody's really excited about it. You know,
just tell me it's empty space. What's the big deal?
I think it's that, but I think it's also the way we've been taught. You know, we've never been taught that we need to go to space, that we need to go venture out. We've always been taught, there's nothing else out there. It's just us, which is 100% a lie. There's no way that's even possible at this point. But because we haven't put the same effort into it as, say, climate change, or we haven't put the same effort into, as we say, brokering peace deals between nations, right? We're just like, you want to go to space? It's cool, but it doesn't help me right now.
We're already,
and that's the issue.
Years past the cycle, so
well, and we have to really understand too that we didn't talk about space a lot in school. When I was in high school, space wasn't really that big. I mean, the moon landing, of course, obviously is discussed. The Challenger happened, you know, so that was discussed, but it wasn't on a, hey, we need to go out here. This is some of the ways we could do it. What do you guys think? Let us know. It never materialized into anything. And I think that that's another reason why, is because we don't care. Space isn't something that solves our problems in the here and now. You know what I mean? I mean, it does. Well, the three of us looking at it starts pushing us out so we don't overpopulate the planet. We can, you know, go out and do our thing. But to the average, you know, everyday person, work, sleep, pay bills. You know, space doesn't help me do any of those things. Going to space is, I mean, if you go to space, you won't have to pay bills anymore because you'll be in space. You know, what are they going to do? Send a debt collector to come and get you in space?
They probably would, yeah.
They probably would.
Space bills.
They probably would.
Space bounty hunter is the next.
Space bills.
Imminent domain in outer space.
Space bills. That's a bill. I thought it was a check. No, it's a bill. It's a bill. So no, I think that we're just not interested. The next one we're going to talk about here, which I'm also a big fan of, is the Dyson Sphere. Now, that is a Class B stellar engine, and it's a mega structure that completely encompasses a star and captures a large percentage of its power output. Its purpose is for a spacefaring civilization to meet its energy requirements. Now, I've seen a plethora of mock builds of what Dyson Spheres could look like. They have some that cover the whole sun. They have some that just cover a part of the sun. They have some that sit outside of the sun, but it collects the energy from the sun. There's just a bevy of ways for us to get the energy from our sun. But once again, it's all theoretical. You'd have to have ships out there building this thing. It would have to wrap itself around our sun. I'm not even sure how close we can get to our star before we burn up. I know you can't, like, once you get to a certain point, it's like, well, now you're screwed. You can't turn back. So we would have to design heat resistant shielding or heat resistant robots that would have to go out and do it for us. And that's going to take time. And you better hope there's not rogue asteroids or rogue comets or solar flares that would happen that could cause EMP bursts. It's quite a conundrum, if you will, in regards to a Dyson sphere. In the interest of time, I'm just going to kind of run through the rest of these real quick. We could still talk about them. Next up is a Star Tug. A Star Tug is a Class C stellar engine that is a combination of a Shakadov thruster and a Caplan engine to produce an even more powerful and efficient mechanism to move a star. Stellification is the process of introducing devices into a cosmic object and, after a period of time, causing it to radiate light and heat equivalent to a small star. And the Shklovsky mining grazer is a stellar engine typically used to move or destroy a star. The gamma ray laser could be aimed to strike a glancing blow at the target star on the side opposite the direction you want it to move. This one is terrifying because this is where the military science fiction comes in heavy.
Death Star.
Yeah, the Death Star, essentially. The Death Star.
Death Star.
And all it takes is that one greedy person to be like, it's mine. If you don't pay me $20 billion, I'm going to blow up the sun. I'm going to blow up the earth with our grazer.
Excellent.
Right. Which, to be fair, all of these are theoretical and they would take a very long time to build. It's not something we could just be like, yeah, I'm going to have that mining grazer built this weekend. If you guys want to come through, I'll get some beer and pizza and we'll build it together. No. And you got to have some great minds on this. You got to have some highly intelligent people that make sure every single mathematical situation is figured out, or once again, it doesn't work. Then you have a massive floating space junk. Where's the space junk going to go? Is it going to come back to Earth, fall, and destroy half of our planet? Because if you build something like this, they're very large. The Dyson spheres are huge. They're massive. It's basically a planet. So now you're going to have a planet crashing into our planet. And then there you go. Now you've created a doomsday scenario
Maldeck.
that nobody wants. Nobody wants the doomsday scenario. Now, I want to get in touch on this real quick, and then we'll talk about it. Dark matter as a fuel. Now, there is a theoretical concept for advanced propulsion proposing that a spacecraft could scoop up dark matter and use it for powerful acceleration, potentially enabling near light speed travel. Now, because dark matter has an extremely weak interaction with ordinary matter, it makes the idea impractical and highly speculative. Now, the way this would work is, first it would collect, and the spacecraft would use a magnetic field to scoop up dark matter as it travels through space. The energy release after being scooped up, the dark matter would be used in an engine. Its annihilation products could be used for propulsion akin to a Bussard ramjet, but substituting dark matter in place of hydrogen. And finally, propulsion. This is the process described above that could lead to rapid acceleration and the possibility of reaching speed close to that of light. Now, gentlemen, before we close it out here, dark matter. What are your thoughts on us being able to use dark matter as fuel? Because I think that would be the quintessential way we could really travel into space. I think that's really the only way that we can really go out past certain points in our galaxy. We would need the ability to harness dark matter in a fuel format for us to sort of kick off into deeper space. You know, I don't know how far we can go now. We can go to the moon, obviously, and that's about it. Because I think, what's the next closest planet to us? Is it Mars?
Yeah, Mars in one direction and Venus in the other.
And obviously Venus with the gas house, with the way the way Venus is, with the greenhouse gases and such, we can't land there. It's too hot. It's way too hot. You can live in the clouds, supposedly like Cloud City from Star Wars. But yeah, you know, I think that that's something that has to happen. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on dark matter and dark matter being used as fuel?
Spider.
Okay.
Scooter.
The theories around dark matter and dark energy are what is supposedly fueling universal expansion. So if you take that as a proof of concept, and if you believe that that interaction can cause movement on that large of a scale, something like that, if it could be harnessed, could definitely be used as a method of propulsion. But the thing is, if it's the mover behind universal expansion, it's obviously extremely powerful. And attempting to scale it down to a single spacefaring craft of some kind without just obliterating you with your first engine blast,
Right.
is really going to be a big technical thing. Now, while right now everything is very hypothetical, very theoretical, I think we are very close to a breakthrough on dark energy and dark matter. I think we're getting closer and closer. We've got some fantastic theories. I love string theory, as I know Steven's a big fan of string theory. I'm a big fan of a lot of the quantum entanglement and various other things that go along with all that. And I think we're very close to finding the linchpin that ties all of that together. I think once we figure that out, the whole mystery with dark matter and dark energy is going to be more or less solved. We might not even call it that anymore. It might end up being an entirely different kind of elemental force, but it'll be what we've been looking for. And once we find that, I believe it will revolutionize space travel, much as this kitten is revolutionizing my face. A quick comment, too, in closing, as far as some of the other technologies, is that Dyson spheres don't even necessarily have to be constructed around a natural star.
No.
A lot of science fiction implies it to be an artificial star. And an artificial star is technology that, believe it or not, supposedly we can create right now.
Yes.
There have been many news stories in the past. I remember reading them. No, I have to kind of throw a little bit of doubt, because anything that comes out of China, I think, is a bit suspect. And that's not to be, against anybody of Chinese nationality or anything, but I don't really think your government is all that trustworthy. I know ours isn't either. I'm not going to say that, but I have a lot to distrust from the Chinese government, and they have claimed that their scientists in years past have created artificial suns in laboratories. And while I think that would be awesome, the fact that it's not being used for anything right now is kind of, well, did you do it? What are you going to do with it? Nothing. Just let it sit in the lab and then turn into a mini black hole. So I don't know. But the technology to do that, I believe, is there. I think we do know how to make tiny little miniature suns, because it just takes the right balance of gases and heat and the chemical reaction. Whether we can sustain that for a large craft of some kind is an entirely different proposal, but I do believe that's possible. And that's, again, another thing that we're kind of on the edge of. Whether it's this generation or another generation down the road, I think it's another feasible thing. Being able to control it is an entirely different option, but
That's right.
It raises a lot of positive connotations, I think, for potential. So between that and dark matter and dark energy, I think those are very promising. Do I trust the people running the show to do that responsibly at the moment? Not really, but I remain hopeful that somewhere in the future, in the far future, Someone will figure something out, and we'll be out there in the stars, flying around, having a good old time.
Okay. What do you think, Steven? What are your closing thoughts?
I think dark energy or dark matter, however you want to classify it, is probably the closest we are to discovering interstellar travel of any sort. And I think we're going to discover it within all of our lifetimes, honestly. I think Spider's right.
If we haven't already, and just
Yeah,
nobody said anything.
it's just hidden. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Spider's right. I think we're very close to a breakthrough, like you said, if we haven't already found one and they're just hiding it. And I really do believe that it could be a very good unlimited energy source. And as Spider mentioned, if it really is the force that is powering the expansion of the universe, and someone is potentially worried about the heat death of the universe and the rubber band effect when it gets out, stretches so far and comes back, well, who's to say that learning how to harness dark energy professionally and properly couldn't, counteract that expansion and give us longer to live?
I have to agree with both of you here. I think it's imperative that we do discover this dark energy if we haven't already. You know, it's vital to us traversing the spaceways. We can't. I don't think, given what we have now, you could just put the space shuttle up against take it to the gas station and throw a couple bucks in the tank, and now you're off to Mars, you're off to Jupiter, you're off to Saturn, whatever. I think it's going to take a whole different type of energy in order for us to navigate ourselves into that situation. However, the only thing that kind of, I wouldn't say terrifies me, but kind of worries me is the negative repercussions of dark energy. Can it be weaponized? Because if it can be weaponized, then we have a whole nother problem on our hands. And if it gets in the hands of, say a radical leader in another country, that could be a very big problem for us as a species. Because you get some yahoo in there that doesn't know anything about dark matter, and he does something stupid, you might have wiped out half of the country.
Yep.
Because we don't know what dark matter does on the negative aspect of things. We don't know that if used wrong, maybe it blows up the whole planet. I'm not saying it's going to do that, and I'm being very much extreme in that viewpoint. However,
Valid,
we have to
though.
take these things into consideration. Yeah, we got to take these things into consideration. So
The Manhattan Project.
yeah,
It could
yeah,
have
and
lit
that's
the entire
that's just
atmosphere on
nuclear.
fire.
That's just nuclear energy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? This is a step way above that.
So if that could
Excellent.
light the atmosphere on fire, just imagine
Yeah.
what this could do.
Well, I want to thank both co-hosts here, Spider and Steven, for another fine conversation regarding the future of space travel. I thought we had some very interesting conversation. You can always check us out on our different platforms. You could catch me and Spider on the Twitch side of things. You can catch Steven on Steven's Oddities when he's not busy learning how to restructure math problems for the world to see. So go check them out on their respective platforms. And if that is it, gentlemen, we are going to head out of here. I hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful night. Enjoy whatever weather you have. If you have the cold weather, enjoy it. If you have the hot weather, enjoy it. And as always, like I love to say, why be boring when you can be uncanny? We will see you folks next week for an all new set of topics. Till then, stay uncanny.